This video is made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.
Hi there, my name is Willem and welcome to NWR's Gamescom report. I've spent all week at Gamescom trying to talk to developers, publishers, and even getting my hands on some awesome new games you can expect in the future. In this series, I'll take you along to interviews at the event. I hope you will enjoy these videos. You're about to watch an interview I did with Takaya Imamura. Imamura has had a lengthy career in the games industry and worked for over 30 years at Nintendo in Japan. You may not know his name, but you have definitely seen his artwork for games and extended materials like Star Fox, F-Zero, Steel Diver, and Tank Troopers. He was also the art director on The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. He departed Nintendo of Japan a few years ago and started as a teacher of game design at the University of Technology in Osaka. He is also a comic book artist for his own universe called Omega 6, which he has now adapted into a text-adventure game. In this interview, I asked him about his lengthy career at Nintendo, as well as how he's taking those lessons with him while venturing out on his own and teaching a new generation of designers. I hope you will enjoy this chat with Takaya Imamura. So, first of all, thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I'm very excited to talk to you. And actually, I'm most excited to talk to you first about Omega 6, because how long have you been wanting to do something like Omega 6, going out and make your own project?
Yeah, I think I think this is common for most game creators, game developers. They dream of being able to have the freedom to make whatever they want.
Right, and then that you do it alongside your work still as a teacher. Do I understand that correctly?
教授をしながらも開発やってるっていう認識で。
はいはい。
Does that overlap well, like both being a developer and still passing on your knowledge to a new generation?
As a teacher, you kind of sometimes come across the attitude with students that you're just sat up there talking to us. What have you actually done? So, as a kind of an insurance policy against that, I'm up there, I'm teaching, but I'm also still developing games. To be honest, this is a personal note. I've always hated teachers. They seem like they're up there, as though they own the place, telling people what to do and how to think. But what can they actually do? That was always my attitude. But then again, I also thought that students they're going to listen to a teacher, whoever they are, whatever they say. And that being the case, then there needs to be a good supply of good teachers to teach them. Otherwise, people get misguided, right?
I think that's a very noble pursuit, indeed. So, can you tell me a little bit about what the difference is? You worked for Nintendo for such a long time. What is the difference between working for a company that size, that history, and then doing it yourself with one other person as well, writing, I think doing development as well with you? What is the difference in working in these environments?
To be honest, while I was at Nintendo, I had a pretty good degree of freedom while I was there, comparatively. So on that note, it's not a huge difference between the two, but probably the biggest difference is that the responsibility for the quality of the end product is all down to me now.
Do you find that scary? I mean, you are responsible in the end for running a company.
It is. I mean, it is scary, and I do feel anxious. And I'm sure there's people out there who are looking for me to fail. But my sheer passion to create something is more powerful than those negative feelings, and that's what leads to the creative output. I think for creators, and this doesn't just mean like game developers, but any creative pursuit, I think part of the job description is that your creative works are out there in the world and people basically crap on them. That's part, just rolling with those punches is part of the job. And one of the things I learned at Nintendo was even when you take those kind of punches, you don't get angry, you don't get sad, you stay calm. You roll with it.
Yeah. I think that's a very good work ethic to take with you, especially as a teacher as well, right? There's a lot of situations that's challenging.
So the ex-president of Nintendo, Yamauchi, He used to tell us, even if something really good happens, don't get carried away. And the flip side of that is if something bad happens, don't let it get you down either. And the other thing, his other philosophy about Nintendo, which bears in the name of the company itself, is you put 100% of your effort into everything, and then everything else is just down to heaven, heaven, the fortune.
Yeah, leave luck to heaven.
まあ名前の由来ですよね。任天堂ね。
That actually ties really good into my next question, because one of your first jobs was, of course, working on F-Zero. But in particular, what I find interesting is you're responsible for creating the comic book in the manual. And Omega 6, of course, started out as a comic book. So you are, in a sense, a mangaka. You made now the jump from a comic to a video game. What excites you about working as a comic book artist, and what lesson from working as a comic book artist are you taking with you when designing an interactive piece of media?
It's a good question. So for me, drawing, illustrating is basically a form of communication. It's not whether what you're drawing is good or bad. It's more, can I express what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling in this picture? And manga, a comic, is a great way of doing that because it's literally telling a story through the art form. Thinking back, you mentioned Omega 6 based on a comic. When I interviewed for Nintendo, Shigeru Miyamoto was one of the interviewers, and one of the things I brought with me to an interview was effectively a prototype of the comic of Omega 6. So he looked through that, and I think part of his impression of that was one of the reasons why I got into Nintendo in the first place.
So is it? I think the characters you design, especially looking at Omega 6, but also like Captain Falcon, the Star Fox crew, they have a sort of striking, posing, energy, communication. Was that something that you felt during that interview, for example, with Miyamoto-san? Did you really, did he latch onto that aspect of your work? Do you think that?
I don't know what Miyamoto-san took from it, but when I went to interview, the manga was one of these. I took several examples of my work in, and the one he picked up on the most was the manga. It wasn't exactly like Omega 6, it was a little bit more comical, but it was the same science fiction adventure style thing.
When looking at your work as an artist, both at Nintendo but also your personal projects, what I found striking is that most of the projects you worked on are about characters with a relationship to a vehicle or a mechanical vehicle. Like Team Star Fox, but the F-Zero racers, Steel Divers, Tank Troopers, they're all pilots in a way. And you tend to characterize them with your artwork, so you give them a place outside of the cockpit or the vehicle. So how do you humanize pilots when a player mostly sees their vehicles, and how do you communicate that through your artwork? Is that something you actively seek out in your projects as well?
The simplest answer to that, and it is very simple, is that both with F-Zero and Star Fox, I wanted to draw some characters. There wasn't any real need in the game. I just wanted to draw some characters for that world. The end result was great, but it wasn't necessarily. There was no great philosophical, thing behind it. It was just I wanted to draw some characters. Of course, because both of those games were about controlling a vehicle. So the vehicles were first. They came first before anything else, and the characters came after. But having said that, at the concept stage when I'm concepting the vehicles, I'm also thinking about the characters alongside them.
The character's personality is reflected in the vehicle in a sense, right?
It really depends on the game, and it's case by case. But for example, Steel Diver, the functionality of the crew is that it changes the parameters of the submarine. But that's from a purely mechanics level. But from a player's perspective, having some kind of a face to those parameters makes it easier to feel part of the game.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So we're talking a lot about your classic work and how it influences like Omega 6 and the game, and are there any considerations for you to do spiritual sequels to games you worked on at Nintendo? Is that something you enjoy? Because I can imagine you get asked about those all the time, right? But it's also, is that something you want to pursue in your career?
Just regarding while I was at Nintendo, but also in a general answer to the question about F-Zero and Star Fox, they're both those series are very close to Shigeru Miyamoto's heart, and I get the feeling that I'm pretty sure that if a new iteration of one of those games got greenlit, he would really want to be part of the development. But he's a really busy person, so I don't think I think realizing that's going to be difficult. From my personal perspective, I think also that Nintendo as a whole, but also Miyamoto's approach to game design is that they don't want to rehash the same old thing. So they always need something unique in every new iteration. And perhaps one of the reasons why there hasn't been a sequel for so long while I was at Nintendo was I wasn't able to find something that was exciting and new enough for Miyamoto to give it the green light so he would be involved. As an example of how important the franchises are to Miyamoto-san and how much he values new ideas and the lack of them, meaning that a new game won't get kicked off. Star Fox Zero, for example, started off life as, hey, let's do a shooting game using both screens. This was the idea that came down from Miyamoto, and if we can use that, then okay, we can put that into a new Star Fox, and that's where Zero comes from. And if you want any more proof, then that was the first game that Miyamoto worked on as a director for probably about 20 or so years.
I have one more question. It's more of a fun, interesting bit. So our site director is a massive Star Fox fan, biggest you can imagine. He asked me to ask to you, which Star Fox Command ending is canon?
I can't make an official comment, so this is, of course, my own opinion, because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get anybody else in trouble. I'd say that that Star Wars-esque ending where Fox's son goes off to carry on his legacy, and the older wizened Falco takes him under his wing, literally, to train him.
My favorite.
Favorite, yes.
Yeah, the reason we made that a multi-ending game is because it's a game. With a film or a book or any other medium, it has to have a story that ends in a specific way. But with a game, that doesn't have to be the case, and it gives the opportunity to play out different scenarios. When you get to be a super fan, then the arguments start. Okay, which one's canon? Which one is the true ending? But the fact that that's still being debated now is, I think, evidence that we made the right choice in making it multi-ending.
You've been responsible for designing Tingle in Majora's Mask. I think it's every artist's dream that their artwork lives on long after they're passing. How do you feel that Tingle will outlive you until probably the end of time?
My answer is not just about Tinkle. I've created a lot of different characters, and one of the things I give a lot of thought to at the moment is how many more characters can I create that are going to outlast me. So, yeah, obviously I'm happy if anything I've created outlasts me and people remember me.
Do you have a favorite F-Zero character, by the way?
Obviously Captain Falcon, but also Super Arrow and Mrs. Arrow from X and GX, the couple.
I haven't lost your touch. Arigatou gozaimasu.
This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.